Thank you for joining us today. My name is Brenda. I'm the Director of Programming at See Kids Dream. I wanted to let you know a little bit about who we are and what we're doing today. See Kids Dream provides service learning programs to schools so their students can gain important leadership skills while making our world a better place. Some of the student leaders at the schools who participate in our service learning programs couldn't complete their in-person interviews with local nonprofit organizations before schools closed. So we're hosting these organizations on here so students can do virtual interviews. These interviews are important so students can get their questions answered and take what they learned to decide the best way to help the issues that are important to them. Today, we're happy to be hosting Isaac from Buckeye Ranch. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here. It's an awesome opportunity.
Oh, great. This hopefully next year you'll get a chance to actually go out in the classroom
Exactly.
and meet with the students directly. But we appreciate you taking the time to do our virtual interviews with us.
No problem. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I had some students that submitted some questions to me, so I'm going to go ahead and start with those. One of the questions is, how did your organization get started?
It's a really interesting story. So PFSN, Permanent Family Solutions Network, is just one sector of the Buckeye Ranch. The Buckeye Ranch started back in the early 1960s with what a lot of people know as the Buckeye Boys Ranch, which is, the precursor to our residential facility that's located in Grove City. That was a residential facility for up to about 10 young boys in the community at the time, mental health, behavioral health, same type of things we're seeing today, obviously a little different era, but that's kind of how we got started, was with a residential type of facility. And that continued for about 20 years. In the 80s. It grew obviously with the needs of the community. And that is when it turned into the Buckeye Ranch, started taking young girls as well. And since then we have just grown tremendously to really help as much of the community as we can. Our primary focus is always going to be family strength, but the way we kind of combat issues in the community is to address mental health, behavioral health, obviously child abuse, neglect, dependency, unruly behaviors within the community. So that's kind of how we got our start, and that's, we're still fighting the fight to this day.
Thank you. How long one of the students wants to know, how long have you been with the Buckeye Ranch?
So I have been with the Buckeye Ranch just shy of 3 years. It'll be 3 years in July.
Students also want to know, what age range do you help?
Anywhere from birth up to now, about 21 years of age, with the development of one of our most recent projects, which would be the Bridges organization.
Students also want to know, how old do you have to be to volunteer?
So our volunteer programs are a little different, obviously with the laws around client confidentiality. Our volunteer programs more so are in the face of helping with community projects. Like, I know this past fall, we set up a new playground at the Bonner Academy school that we have, and that was open to volunteers. I don't think there's really that much of an age limit. Obviously, we're not going to make a child do an adult's task, but I haven't seen an age limit on volunteer programs. It's just very limited right now, obviously with what's going on in the community, unfortunately, and just due to the nature of our work, we don't have too many volunteer opportunities.
Totally understandable. I have a question from a student. It says, how do you know when child abuse strikes?
That's a great question. That's a hard question to answer. That's a really good question. It just depends, honestly. Fortunately, children in the community are around a lot of great individuals, mandated reporters, teachers, people who are required by their job description to report child abuse and neglect. And unfortunately, very rarely do we catch it in the moment. It's always a report where we see evidence of said abuse. But, in the nature of my work, we do often walk into situations where you can see maybe not immediate abuse in the moment, but obviously it's an immediate safety concern, which we have to address right away. That's a really in-depth question, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of answers to it, but every case is a little bit different.
Yeah. Students also want to know how many people does your organization help every year?
So I got some numbers for you. As of right now, we are helping in foster care and kinship and whatnot. In my division, we're helping around 225 children. In foster care, we have another couple hundred within different sectors. Total, we have about 1,250 children that we're working with right now. It's about 560 cases. In 2019 total, though, we maintained working with about 1,000 families. So in that,
that's quite a few. You're helping
yeah,
a lot.
in 2019, actually, the total number of youth that we helped with was 2,069 total.
Students also want to know, let's see, what should they do if they think somebody's being abused?
That's a great question. There's multiple things you can do. The easiest I would say is tell an adult, tell someone you trust. Don't be silent. It's better to err on the side of caution. Teachers are mandated reporters, police officers, first responders, your school guidance counselor. I mean, the cafeteria staff, anyone at school that's an adult, you can tell that adult and they will take the appropriate steps to address the concern. There's also a hotline here in Franklin. There's a hotline in every county, but there's a hotline here in Franklin County for Franklin County Children's Services to make a report of abuse or neglect. And that number is 614-229-7000. That's the hotline 24/7. You can always make a report. If you have a concern, big or small, it's better to err on the side of caution. But my biggest piece of advice, tell an adult, tell someone you trust. Don't just sit by and be silent. Trust your gut. And
they also want to know, students want to know, how would you help a child who's been abused?
It depends with what the abuse is. We have a vast variety of programs, anything from family-based therapy to individual-based to assistance with solely the parent, assistance with solely the child and the child-parent relationship. We have access to all the community resources in Columbus, which is such a great list, through mentors, tutors, stuff like that. It really just depends on what type of case we're dealing with. But I have yet to come across a case that we don't have a resource for. So that's a really good sign for here in Columbus. And I know it's not like that everywhere. So we're really lucky to be working in social work field here in Columbus, in Franklin County. So it really just depends on what the case is, but we always have something we can do to help.
I have another student that wants to know, what strategies do you have when helping a child who's been abused?
So it goes in line with our program, but we don't just address the face value. We don't just address what we're seeing in front of us, because 99% of the times there's things that have led up to that incident. There's things that incident is triggered from and by. So it can be, it's not always addressing the child right away. If we can remove a child from a harmful situation, we will help that child with whatever they need. And they always, or not always, but typically do need mental health services, behavioral health services. But our primary focus actually leans more towards on the parents, where we can assist them in, relieving stressors in their everyday life, whether it's assisting with finances, if it's a case of, just neglect, or it's assistance with parenting classes or appropriate parenting, or issues between both parents or both adults and caregivers in the household. So we really address every aspect we can find that translates into that neglect, abuse, trauma. We'll treat every aspect we can.
I have another student question. I know you talked about how many you help in a year, but they want to know, how many cases do you usually see each month?
So we are ongoing. So we hold cases up to sometimes a little bit past 2 years even. That is, that's how the 2 year timeline is kind of, that encompasses court timelines as well, which we won't really need to get into that. But caseworkers, once they become once they come out of training, typically hold anywhere from 15 to up to about 22 cases a month. But there's, that's 40 caseworkers in my organization. There's another nonprofit in the Columbus area that I would assume matches us. And then you have Franklin County as well. We are contracted with Franklin County Children's Services. So we actually take around 32 cases per month from them. Basically, they get a big old pot of cases and we take 32. The other organization takes 32 and then they take however many they can hold as well. So that's consistent every month throughout the year. Right now is a little bit different, but 32 new cases come in. They have to go to caseworkers, but caseworkers are holding around 18 to 20 cases on average. And like, I know myself and several other coworkers have some cases we've worked with for 2 years. Some cases we've only had for a couple weeks. So it really just depends.
One of the students wants to know why do you want to help children that have been abused?
I was coming out of college and it really just fell into the job. I was looking for something to get into and I knew I wanted to work with the community and serve my community to the best of my abilities. And, knowing I come up from a very lucky background and, I knew I had, energy, time, motivation to donate to these families that really need the assistance. And, I don't think anyone can sit by and see these families struggle without caring. So I know I have the time and motivation for it, and that's why I do what I do. And there's a lot of other my coworkers just like it. So
one of the students wants to know that what do you do to console kids who are scared and afraid from what's happened?
Whatever we need to. That is the broad term. I've put on a bunny ear hat and danced around the lobby. I've colored on my own arm. I've let kids color on me, whatever we need to do in the moment. Obviously we have to relieve the immediate safety concern. But, if it's, whether it's from providing a service like mental health counseling, behavioral health counseling, or if it's just in that moment, consoling a child who has just witnessed one of the most traumatic things they're ever going to see in their lives, we do whatever's necessary. It can be from getting dinner with a kid while unfortunately they wait in an office with a bunch of strangers, to just sitting on the back porch talking to a teenager through a really traumatic situation and just being their ear, their shoulder to lean on. There's multiple things we do outside of just providing services. It's our office is definitely like a family, but we treat and we view these cases just as they are our own family. And, we're always there to help out and we're always there to listen and we'll do whatever we have to.
Another question that I have is students want to know, sorry, I got my list of questions. What can they do to help educate people about stopping child abuse?
So, you can go online, you can print out all the brochures you can find. There's several websites on Columbus or for Columbus area resources about child abuse. But, I think the most or the biggest thing a child can do is just be there for your friends, pay attention, keep your eyes open. If something's concerning, don't be afraid to step up and say something to an adult. Talk to your parents about it when you go home at night, express your concerns. And as far as teaching others about child abuse, I think it's a really interesting and really a heartwarming moment when you see kids who are empathetic and compassionate and can, take a child, not necessarily under their wing, but care for a classmate who obviously is going through something maybe traumatic, maybe just a struggle at home, and really, really push that mentality off on your peers. And it kind of goes back to like a bullying conversation. Like, it's better just to be empathetic. It's better to be compassionate. Teach your peers to be empathetic and compassionate, and that will go a long way. And that will help kids who are going through all these abusive, traumatic things. And I think that's the best way to teach a child. And it's really, what we do is really complex, and it's even hard for us adults to fathom sometimes, the things that we work with. It's that traumatic. So to put that burden on a child, I never want to do that. But for kids looking to help others, like I said, just be there, be compassionate, pay attention, keep your eyes out. If something's kind of fishy, make a note of it, tell an adult, and really, really try to motivate your friends to do the same.
The students want to know if they would donate money to your organization, what would it be used for?
Anything that you can imagine, we use donations for. I mean, whether it's a box of diapers for a new teen mom, maybe that has no supports, or a heavy weighted blanket for a kid that can't sleep because his anxiety is too high. From bed sheets for our independent living youth who are living in by themselves right now, to supplies for the office, supplies just for us to address concerns in the family, car seats. If it can be used, or it's a supply for a child, we'll take money and use it for that. We actually, as Buckeye Ranch is a nonprofit, in 2019, 91% of our revenue went back into our programs and services. So, when it comes to donations, we're not keeping money where it's coming in, we're putting it right back out. It's going to whatever we need it to: playgrounds, supplies, everything.
Another question a student had was if you guys need any other types of donations or any other kind of service project that students could do for you, that they could do for you.
Yeah, like I said, money's one thing. It can buy us things, but it's not, not everyone can donate that, and that's 100% okay. Supplies, honestly, are the greatest donation that I've seen personally come in. I know when I get, maybe a church will supply just a food drive for us, so they'll provide some food for us to give to families. And really, like right now, really hard time. Not a lot of people are that stable, and it's really great to see all these organizations coming together with these food drives. The Mid-Ohio Food Bank's doing a great job. And, so baby supplies, always. The office is always out of baby supplies. That's something. When school starts back up in the fall, that's always something we do a drive, especially for our kinship families, like our grandparents who are watching their grandchildren. We always like to get school supplies for them. That's something that, that adds up quick in the store, and sometimes it's hard to find things. So it's always good to have those resources. As far as, some type of drive in the community, it would go along those same lines. If we could find a way to do more work with getting supply or getting supply donations, that would just go a long way.
Yeah, and it always can help a nonprofit with donations.
Exactly.
A student wants to know if the Buckeye Ranch wasn't around to help, what do you think would happen to some of these kids?
So I can say, as a whole, children's services across the nation is overwhelmed. We're always understaffed, and we always have too high of caseloads. If you took 40 caseworkers away right now, you're thinking, there's several hundred cases that are going to be put on the back burner. When caseworkers get too high of a caseload, we struggle to maintain our requirements for face-to-face visits, to see them in the home, to check on them properly. And even when we do get to, it's hard to really do a very thorough job when you have too much on the plate. Without PFSN, our community, it would just struggle to address as much child abuse and neglect as there is. There'd be more children, quote, getting swept under the rug, unfortunately, and we'd be missing a lot more child abuse and neglect.
A question I had from a student is what if your friend is experiencing child abuse and the parent says not to interfere?
Um, I would go back to your parents. Um, if it's something isn't sitting right with you and you feel it's not appropriate, go back to your parents. They can help you handle that situation a little more discreetly, a little more quietly. Just because someone tells you, hey, don't say anything about this, if it's wrong, at the end of the day, it's still wrong. And that doesn't mean they get a free pass just because they told you to be quiet about it. So speak up. Don't be afraid to speak up. Trust me, you won't get in trouble for speaking up ever, I promise. And if you do get in trouble, that person's in the wrong, I guarantee it. So to speak up, teachers, like I said, teachers, first responders, school staff, counselors, clinicians, your parents, even, speak up to an adult that you trust, and trust that they'll go forward with it appropriately.
Another student question I had is, how has the current situation
It's affecting all of us, right? So just as we are today, we're doing a lot of video conferences. We have every caseworker, I'm sure this is throughout the county, has met with their supervisor about every case, and we just dive into what the safety concerns are. A lot of our families we work with, there's not an immediate safety concern. The house, the home life is doing great. The family's doing what they need to, and it's okay for us just to video chat. It's safe. We can trust the situation. We know the children are safe. Sometimes there are cases that, we have to get eyes on. We have to get into that house to make sure it is safe for those children. So every caseworker has a little bit different of a caseload right now with that. Like I said, lots of video conferences. We are, so along with the video conference, we'll do that once or twice a month, depending on the case, but we are calling every individual on our caseload every week, just to check in. Some calls are, hey, everything okay? Yep. Okay, cool. Other calls, you're problem solving, you're fixing, so-and-so missed a bill, so-and-so couldn't make it to the grocery store and now they're in a bind, and we're problem solving each week. So we are just monitoring cases as closely as we can, but also keeping that 6-foot distance. Staying safe, keeping ourselves safe as well. We don't want to take anything into other kids' homes. So, video conferences and checking in as much as we can.
One of the students wants to know, how many volunteers do you have?
I honestly can't give you that number. Like I said, a lot of what we do is very sensitive information. By law, sensitive information. It's a lot of medical information. So we have to have actual workers that are allowed and cleared to handle that information and to experience and be around those individuals and know that sensitive information. So I don't know if we have a base of volunteers. I can't give you that information, unfortunately. But if we do, I'm sure it's minimal, as we only have a few real big volunteer things throughout the year.
I have another question from a student. What are some cases that you thought that are really important? What are the most important, I guess, cases that are not exactly sure what they're asking?
Every case is important. Every case is important to us. We handle every case, as attentively and as, driven to help the family as we can. Yes, there's some cases that are more concerning for safety reasons. Obviously, if you're looking into the social work field, you've read the horror stories. Unfortunately, that's just the fact of what we do, and it hurts, but we're proud to do it. We're proud to be the ones out there doing it. But that's not to say that family A is more important than family B. Every family is just as important as the next. Some families just require a little more hands-on, a little more attentive approach.
So I know the students want to know, how do you make a child comfortable, I guess, when they have to be at the Buckeye Ranch?
So at the Buckeye Ranch, to me, that's saying they're at a residential facility, which is very different from in foster care, which is very, very different from in kinship homes. So we can kind of dive into those. Kinship, you've heard me say it a couple of times. Kinship is a family or friend that is watching, that's taking care of that child. The best way to describe it, honestly, is almost like that child's in foster care, but that foster parent's their family or friend. It is 100% less traumatic. It's what we strive for every time we remove a child from a home. We go to, we do our due diligence on trying to locate family or friends to take these children in before we do have to put them in foster homes, unfortunately. So if we can get them into that, it's usually a very, I won't say very easy, but it's a smoother transition into kinship homes. They have usually a little healthier contact with their parent, a little more stable or a little more frequent contact with their parent. And that really helps them being in an environment that they're familiar with. When it comes to foster care, it can be a lot different. We have children who have never been away from mom and dad that are going to these foster homes. So you got to be patient. Patience is our number one thing, I think, and providing them the services they need. But also within a week of being removed from their home, they're starting visits back up with their parents. They're doing phone calls. Now, based on the safety concerns, those can be supervised or monitored directly by staff. But we never deny a child contact with their parent. They have an obligation to that, and we always ensure to have healthy contact with parents and keep that going. And whether it's setting up counseling immediately or family counseling for the family, we'll do that. As far as residential goes, kind of the same way residential works. It's a lot different of a program compared to foster care. The children residential are there for intensive treatment, so they do several things throughout the day. Their whole day is packed with treatment type things, but the same thing. They have direct contact with mom. They have direct contact with caregivers. They have direct contact over the phone. Right now, FaceTime or whatever video platform they're using. And obviously, when we get out of this mess, they'll do face-to-face visits and whatnot.
A follow-up question from a student is, how many students do you have then in residency right now?
So for permanent family solutions, like the caseworkers, in residential right now as a whole, we have 31 children from our organization. That's just in the Buckeye Ranch. There's numerous residential facilities across Ohio and across the nation. And we have children, and a lot of them, unfortunately. And the same, I would venture to say the same goes for the other organizations just like us in Franklin County that are doing the same thing we do. So that 31 number is quite a low number. I just don't have the total number for you guys right now, unfortunately, but it's much higher than 31. Yeah.
Let's see, we already answered that question. What else do you think is important for kids to know about what you guys do and about what they can do?
So I'll address the first part. There's a stigma about, CPS or Children's Protective Services, ongoing caseworkers. There is a stigma around it. Children more so don't really understand that compared to adults, but there's a stigma around it. I would say to anyone listening, we're not here to separate families. We're here to make families stronger and give families the tools they need to succeed, and not just for a short period, for the long haul. We never like to see families come back. That breaks our heart. But the most important thing is, we are here just as other nonprofits, just as other community resources to provide help to families. Unfortunately, we work with a little bit darker of a side of the community. However, that's, it has to be done, and we're proud to do it. And, ultimately we're here to reunify families and make families stronger and keep families together. As far as, education about the topic. Like I said, online there, if Franklin County Children's Services, the BuckeyeRanch.org, our websites have a ton of information about what we do, about who and the amount of individuals we help, and how we do that. So, definitely check out our websites. It can answer a lot of questions for you. And always, there's your guidance counselors in school, your clinicians, they have information on us as well. They know we work with them, hand in hand, just as we do when we were speaking earlier about CASA. We work, hand in hand with a ton of organizations throughout Franklin County. So, the information's out there, like I said, Franklin County, you can get brochures if you want paper brochures. Our offices have them. If you want to stop by and get some information, you can. Feel free. Nationwide Children's can give you information on us. But like I said, the easiest and the best way to really kind of learn more about us and what we do would be online at our websites.
Terrific. I think that's about all the questions that I seem to be getting from the students. So I really appreciate taking the time to answer their questions today.
Yeah, no problem.
More about the Buckeye Ranch.
Yeah, no problem.
I really appreciate it. If anybody wants to learn more about the Buckeye Ranch too, you can go to our website at seekidsdream.org. And on our service hub, we have a link. We have a website or page set up for the Buckeye Ranch, and you can link to their website from there for more information too. So thank you so much, Isaac. We really
thank you. I just want to say thank you to everyone out there watching. Thank you, See Kids Dream. This is a great opportunity for us, and we're privileged to be here. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you too. Bye-bye.